All right, let's talk about modals that actually do stuff. So a confirmation modal seems to be like the simplest place to start. If you have a dangerous action like delete, so here I have a list of just kind of dummy blog posts. If you have this little delete button, right now it does nothing, but we'll wire it up to do something. And generally with a dangerous action like this, you want to show some sort of confirmation dialog to your users so that they don't just accidentally click and destroy their sweet, sweet blog post. So let's take a look at the Livewire component. So there's a component called show posts, returns a blade view, passes in posts from the database, and let's take a look at show posts blade. Now this is just a bunch of HTML and Tailwind boilerplate, and I'm looping through the posts here and showing a title, some content, and then a delete button that currently does nothing. So let's wire up the delete button to actually do the deleting. We'll add a wire click here, wire click, delete. We'll pass the post ID, post if. We pass the post ID, and now let's make a little delete method in our Livewire component that accepts a post ID. And then here we'll get that out of the database, post find post ID. Okay, and then we can delete the post. So one quick note, I'm going to make this 1,000 times in these screencasts. When you call a method from the front end with wire click, it's not protected. A malicious user can open up their dev tools and change this post ID to whatever they want. So this input that you're getting here, you have to treat as user input. It's untrusted. You have to do your authorization and your validation and anything you need to do. In this case, these are just dummy posts. There's no user model in this app at all. But generally, if you're showing posts, you're showing a user's post, and you want to make sure that user can delete that post. So just a security note there. But we got our delete method. We got our wire click. Let's see it in action. We hit delete, and perfect. It works just like we want. But now we want to add a confirmation for the user. Simplest way to do this is actually without a modal at all. There's this tool in Livewire called wire confirm, where let's say, are you sure you want to delete this post? Okay, just add wire confirm and a message to any action, wire click, whatever. And now when that action is about to be performed, it shows a little dialog up here. Are you sure you want to delete this post? You can cancel and nothing will happen, or you can hit OK and it'll do the action that it held up in the first place. So let me say full stop. This is the best way to do what we're doing. Don't watch anymore if you're actually just concerned about showing a delete confirmation. That is the best way to do it, in my opinion. If you think that this looks tacky or unprofessional, go to GitHub. There's actions like just the other day, I was just doing something on GitHub and it showed me a dialog just like this that I could confirm or not. It doesn't mean you're a novice. It's really just taking advantage of built-in tools inside the browser. This is accessible. It works on mobile. It's perfect. It doesn't add any extra HTML to your payload. It doesn't slow down your app. This is the way. Did you hear me? This is the way. But for demonstration purposes and times where you're not just doing a simple confirmation, I'm going to actually show you how to build up a confirmation modal from scratch. We'll make it complicated. We'll add in text confirmation so they can type confirm. We'll do all that stuff. And yeah, so that's that. All right, let's get rid of wire confirm and let's wire up our own modal. So public service announcement, I've been using the word modal when I mean modal dialogue. It's really kind of annoying, but technically these are dialogues that are like modal. Like I get like there's dialogues that aren't modals and there's whatever. I don't fully understand it, but I'll tell you this. If you were to go to the worldwide, whatever, to like accessibility standards for the web, they're not really going to use the word modal very much. They're going to use the word dialogue or modal dialogue. And if you noticed inside our modal component, which I ended up renaming to dialogue, but just take a look at this. Inside of, where is it? Inside panel, there's X dialogue because it's not modal. The tool is called a dialogue. So I decided to just take the liberty and rename our modal components to just dialogue components to be more consistent. And you'll see why a little later why I think this is a good rename. So that said, I didn't want to re-record the entire course, so it's now dialogue. I hope you're not confused by that. All right, X dialogue, dialogue button, panel. This button, let's put as our delete button inside our dialog. We can get rid of wire click delete now because this button is just triggering the dialog to open. And then inside panel, we'll put some content. And I already have some here, confirm panel. This is a bunch of HTML so that you don't have to see me write it all. Are you sure this? Well, I'll show you what it looks like in a sec. We hit delete now, and now it shows our nice little modal. Are you sure? This operation is permanent, can't be reversed. This post will be deleted forever. Our X works, everything about our modals just works, but these buttons don't do anything yet. So let's make them do stuff. Before we actually make them do stuff, I want to show you a nice little optimization. I added this footer to this modal because often you have a footer in a modal when you have buttons, and I don't want you to have to style this yourself for every time you want a footer. So I think this is a good opportunity to extract a new Blade component called footer. So footer.blade.php. And now let's extract these 2 lines here. We'll extract these 2 lines. I'm sorry about this indentation. This is definitely annoying for screencasting. And then we'll just pump out a slot here. Okay. And now we can get rid of these 2 and do x dialog.footer. And then we'll close that here. X dialog.footer. Now this looks a lot cleaner, and we re-render and everything is the same, but cancel doesn't do anything. No problem, we can make it do something. We already created another component in the last video or 2 videos ago called, what was it called? Close button. So that if we want a button to just be a close button, no problem. We just add this or wrap it in this X dialog close button. So now cancel should work. Let's try it. We go to delete, cancel works. Okay. And now our delete button, this is pretty simple. It's basically as simple as wire click, delete, just like we had before, right? Well, there's one caveat here, that this is kind of an annoying problem. We cancel, that works, but if I hit delete, it deletes, but it doesn't close the modal because this whatever. Oh, I hate that I'm using those words interchangeably. This dialog here has a variable called open inside of it. Remember xDataOpen? Its open state is kept internally. And right here, we want to change its open state to false. And we've done this in the past. I showed you how you can add wire model and keep a variable called like show modal or something in show posts. But this isn't going to work this time because if you think about it, there's this dialog, there's however many posts you have on the page, there's dialogues. Each row has its own dialogue. So they can't all depend on one global variable. There's a bunch of different ways to do this, but I'm going to show you the most pragmatic way that's going to avoid so much complexity. There's lots of fancy things you could do to achieve this, but I'm going to show you what I think is just the most practical. Before we do this, I'm going to magically refresh this list of posts right now so that we have more posts that we can go ahead and delete. So easiest thing to do here, just wrap it in the close button. You're not going to find an easier way to do this. Wrap it in the close button. And now what's going to happen is LiveWire is going to pick up this delete. It's going to call deletion. But then right after this click happens, this close button is going to pick up that click because click events, they cascade or they bubble up. So it's going to both delete the post and it's also going to close the modal, and I'll show you what that looks like. It looks like really good. Are you sure? Yes. And then it did it. It closed the modal and it deleted it, and it saved us from a lot of extra pain. But there's one little tiny thing if you care a lot, and let me show you what that is. If we go into show posts, and let's just say that this deletion takes a second, like it takes 1 second to actually delete from the database. Now when we go to delete it, it's going to close the modal right away while the delete is happening on the back end and waiting for LiveWire to refresh. This really isn't a problem. In fact, there's a lot of things you could do. Like there's wire loading with LiveWire to make this table kind of opaque, like make it a little transparent while it's loading and disable everything to just show users that something is going on. And that's actually what I would recommend, is just leave it the way it is, because often actions aren't going to take a full second. Just leave it the way it is. But we're here to teach you stuff. So let me show you a more, advanced way of doing this. I'm not necessarily recommending it, but I want to show you because LiveWire is pretty powerful once you understand the advanced stuff. So wire click, well, it's powerful anyway, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. Instead of using LiveWire to call this delete method, let's use Alpine. X on click, wire.delete. This is the equivalent of wire click delete. I don't know if you have seen videos about this or whatever, but $wire is something that's available inside Alpine in your Livewire components, and it's crazy powerful. Let me show you how even more powerful it is. If you're familiar with JavaScript's await syntax, you can actually use it with this method. You can say await, hold up JavaScript execution. While this is being called, this is going to wait until it comes back from the server, and then we can execute another bit of code over here. And to show you what kind of code I want to execute, if we go inside the dialog panel and take a look at the stock close button, this is the one that comes with all our modals. If you look at how it actually works, X on click, dialog.close. Okay, that's an internal thing that Xdialog provides us, and pretty much the reason that I decided we need to rename everything to dialog so that this part doesn't look weird. So watch this, we just do dialog.close. So reminder what's happening, Alpine is gonna hear the click on the delete button. It's gonna wait for it to actually call Livewire and do the deleting, then it's gonna close the modal. So check this out, let's see it in action. The taste of coffee, delete. Now we press delete, and it's gonna hold and wait until it's done and then close. There's lots of other things we should do, like wrap this in a little form element and have it disable the input while it's deleting, but we're not gonna go crazy with this stuff. So I think what I'm gonna do is go back to the olden days where we just had the simple close button and wire click delete, because honestly, I think this is what I would probably do in an application myself. All right, we're getting more advanced, things are good, but let's add a little curveball or another thing you might want, an input confirmation. So check this out. If you go to delete, you might want to force a user to type something like confirm into the dialog or into this input before they can actually do the deletion. And this is pretty easy because we're using Alpine. Let's just create a little Alpine component in our panel. We'll say xData confirmation and set this to an empty string. Now our input x model confirmation. If you're not familiar with Alpine, that's going to make any input in this input element here, it's going to bind it with the data that you pass. So xData confirmation is always going to be coupled with the value of this input. So now we can do stuff. We could say set the disabled attribute on this button to only show if the confirmation is equal to confirm. I know I typed the opposite of what I just said, but you get it. So let's just look at it in action. We hit delete. This is disabled. We can't click it. We type confirm. Now it's enabled. We can hit delete and it deletes our post. We still have that sleep 1 on, which makes it look a little janky. Yeah, I guess let's take a second and actually make this look a little bit better. On our table in tBody, like what would happen if we did this? Opacity 50. Okay, it's gonna make it all look opaque, right? And that maybe kind of makes it look like it's in a loading state, which is pretty good. And maybe we'll do, yeah, there's a few different ways we could go about this. We could put BG white. Let's just leave it. We'll just take care of this. Opacity 50. If we want to apply this class only when Livewire is loading, we can do that with this. Wire loading.class opacity 50. Now if we go to delete one of these, we type confirm. It's going to take a second, but everything should be in kind of a loading state. And there it is, because we did that bit of wire loading. Now it looks beautiful. It doesn't look janky. Janky things are when things just are happening seemingly out of nowhere or in odd timing. But when you show a user some sort of loading state, everything feels solid. You feel like you trust the app because it's keeping track of what's pending and not. So I think it's really important to add wire loading to basically just show your users anytime you're loading something, disabling buttons, showing loading spinners, disabling tables, whatever you got to do. So that's it. I think that's the most advanced thing we can do here, and I'm pretty happy with it. So that's confirmation modals. Again, just use wire confirm. I'll see you in the next video.